Reading, because again, it was quite difficult for me to find a man that, actively reads and reads different books and reviews them. Why do you think that a lot of men do not like reading unless it's related to sports or making money?
So
Sports or making money, yes. So they'll read autobiographies of people, like sports stars or about making money. Other than those two topics, why is it that a lot of men, um, in my impression, do not like reading? Why do you think that is? And what can be done about it?
it's a tough one actually. For me, I've always loved reading. I was a nerd in high school. I was picked on because of it because I love being in books. I love being in libraries. That was just my life. My mum always used to take me to the library since I was like 3 years old. She'd always sit there reading to me daily. So I've always enjoyed reading. And books for me were a solace. Like, they were a place where, you know, I could kind of like dream up my own imaginary world and see everything that I wanted to in there. Because I used to read a lot of fiction. And then as I grew up, especially when I started getting into Islamic scholarship and wanting to understand the faith more on a deeper level, I started focusing on non-fiction books. And then I started branching out because when you only stick your head in religious books, then you're missing out on all the other collective endeavors of the human race, on whether it's things on money or masculinity or philosophy or economics or whatever. So I developed it from that. As to why people don't like it, I feel like there's so many different reasons for it. I feel like one is that they're on when it comes to books and sports and things like monies and biographies of CEOs, I feel like people read those because it's trendy to be reading those. I feel like when you see a guy sitting on the tube in the morning reading the Bill Gates's latest book, or a book by my mind's gone blank, but like Elon Musk and how he built his empire or whatever. Like, I feel like people, it conveys an image of like, oh, I'm this guy that's gonna be super successful and stuff. So people look at what book you're reading and it conveys an image. So I feel like reading books on sports and success and money conveys the image of a masculine and manly man who, I'm into football and I'm into making money and, that kind of source. Whereas, for example, if someone was reading on, I think there was even a book that was written, it had like a really embarrassing title, like, I'm not sure if it's a real book or if someone printed a fake cover and put it on a book as a social experiment, but it's like, like how it was something like how to satisfy your woman with a small penis or something like that. Like it had a really funny name. I don't know what it exactly was, but it's like the fact that someone decided to use that cover as a social experiment to catch people's reactions proves that there is a certain stigma. So like when it comes to like books on like fantasy or, books on, I don't know, so a topic that's not as doesn't convey a certain image, men might generally feel like, oh, this is a bit, it will give me a bad look. Like I once read this book on the tube, and it was a poem about softening the heart. It was in English. It was translated from Arabic, and it had some commentary. And I think Sheikh Hamza Yusuf was the one who translated the book. I mean, and the title was very like very soft.
Purification of the heart?
Sorry.
Was it purification of the heart?
Yeah, I think that was it. That was it. I read
Excellent.
it a while ago. But like, having that open, it conveys a very soft message of like, oh, a man who's trying to be soft and stuff. And I still feel to this day and age, while we are wrestling with the idea of like, toxic masculinity and what is masculinity and all of these kind of things, there is still very much that playground mentality that's put into us as kids. Like, you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way, and you have to behave a certain way. So when it comes to reading, I feel like, why certain men might not want to read about topics regarding like how to manage your anger, because probably people will judge them for, oh, this guy's probably got an anger issue. Or, if you've got a book about, Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, people might judge you as being a nerd on the train, for example. I feel like that plays a part in it. Other people, I've met people that genuinely just don't have an interest in reading. Like they say that they open a book and after like a page they're ready to go to sleep. Like, and I always respond to that saying that maybe you've not picked up the right type of book, because I do believe that reading, everyone can do it because everyone has interests. And even if, like, you know, you're a visual person and you don't like reading, say, for example, novels, you can read comic books. I read loads of comic books and I enjoyed them. I'm a big fan of Star Wars, Marvel, DC, all of that stuff. So, you know, I've always said to people, pick up a comic book. If you're interested in a subject, you will enjoy the book. So I knew about a guy who was very interested in Islamic history, but he was interested in like the gruesome stuff, like the wars and the battles and like that kind of stuff. And personally, like I like history, but I'm not too bogged down in those things. But when I introduced him to one book, like he was recounting dates and times, and this is a guy who wasn't reading before. And I did a seminar on how to read a book, and it was just really quick tips on how people can benefit, how people can go about reading, getting more into reading. And what I always said to them is, if you want to read more, find a topic you care about, and then look a book up on that topic on Amazon, and then look at the bestsellers. What was in the top 10 category? Then find something that appeals to you, look at the blurb, and then read it. And then I've got this thing called the rule of 50. I didn't come up with it, someone else did. But it's like, you know, if the book doesn't grab you in the first 50 pages, then, you know, you feel free to just close the book and be like, look, this wasn't one for me. And I feel like that's another thing that puts people off reading. They get intimidated by the size of a book, and they feel like if they start it, they have to finish it. And I'm like, no, books are like movies. Like, you know, you'll start a movie and you'll say, this is rubbish. Let me find something else on Netflix. You know, you can very well do that with books. I mean, you can see my bookshelf behind me, and I've got plenty of books that I haven't read, or books that I got halfway through and I thought this was a complete bore, or books that I said, you know what, I'm only buying this for referencing. So like I'll read like 3 pages from it and then I'll close it, never touched it again. But yeah, I think that there's probably a lot of reasons why people don't read. And I also believe, like, one of them, and this links to what I said earlier, the mind is a muscle. Just like, I mean, it's not literally a muscle, but it's like a muscle. The more you train it to do something, the more it can do it. If you train your mind to memorize books, like memorizing the Quran and stuff, you'll find you'll generally improve your memorization in anything. You'll memorize dates, you'll memorize things very easily. But if you don't train your mind to read a book, then you're not going to be able to read it because you've not trained that muscle. I went to calisthenics today, a session with some of my friends. I've recently started doing it. It was my second session. And I noticed some of the guys that have been doing calisthenics for like 6-8 weeks, they're doing pull-ups and muscle-ups, and they're like flying off those bars. And I'm there literally struggling to pull myself up on this bar, doing like 3 pull-ups and then dropping down like a piece of dead chicken, you know? And I'm thinking to myself, why is it? But I didn't have any shame, because I'm like, I haven't trained that muscle properly. Those muscles that these guys have been training for 8 weeks to do those pull-ups, I haven't trained it. So I need to train it more. And I can't be embarrassed of it. A lot of people get embarrassed by, you know, reading simple books. I get people that say like, oh, recommend me a book about the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So I show them like a book that's like 300-400 pages long. And like they see that and they're like, they don't want to say to me that that's too much. Like I need something simpler. But you know, sometimes you got to start with a book that's literally 100 pages, and then find another book that's 150 pages, and then just build up from there.
MashaAllah, great advice. I'm going to clip that and then repost that because I loved what you said. So many gems and practical advice as well. And that was something that I loved what you said about like finding a book that like a topic that you're passionate about or that you enjoy, because that does help a lot. And I think that's true, because a lot of people, it's not that they do not like reading, they just haven't found a book that on the topic that they're interested in, or they'll read books about whether it's sports or how to make money because that's something that they're generally passionate about, or interested in. So it's not that they don't like reading. It's only like maybe reading certain books. So they haven't found a book that captivates them. And I have found, and this was one of the challenges I've had, even like with A Taste of Honey, that because I thought, because obviously it came out in 2015. I thought, okay, information is out there for people interested, but then a number of people, because it's 300 odd pages or whatever, and the text, it can be quite daunting for a lot of people where they feel I can't read this. If they're not used to reading, a number of people haven't even read it. And that's what even for myself it's been, okay, how can I, because at the end of the day, whether you read or don't read, the most important thing is maybe getting the message out.
Mm.
So then people will say maybe you need to kind of deliver this in a way that people could access it, whether it's in the form of workshops, slides, just simple where they get the point. Because not everyone needs to read a 300-page book to kind of get the message across, kind of thing, what you're trying to get out. So that's what or even like what you mentioned about, and I was coming to my next question about writing maybe smaller books that easy for people to digest. Even the font size, I've noticed as well. There's some people prefer some, books where it's more spaced out. And I think some people want to feel like a sense of accomplishment. That's why if there's a book is too thick, I'm like you that there's some books I buy for reference purposes. I'll read a couple of pages, I might come back to it, and that's fine. Whereas some people, if they feel they can't finish it, they don't want to start it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
even something that I'm even trying to learn and understand. Okay, at the end of the day, if you're trying to deliver like a message, you need to understand maybe the audience that you may be trying to deliver to, and writing really a thick book or with a lot of references for a lot of people that is off-putting. So I'm glad some of the advice that you gave, because it was really on point.